You ever wondered what kind of wheel you should be using, you should be looking for? I'm just going to show you 3 wheels that we've got in the workshop here, and they are fairly typical of wheels that you might find used on eBay. Can't show you anything new. We rarely invest in new equipment. I'm sure we ought to, but we don't. And these are tried and tested, and it's really quite nice to have a comfortable wheel that you feel at home with and suits your kind of throwing. So this first one here we're looking at is a 240 volt electric wheel. It's got a motor of about 1/3 of a horsepower. Usually tell you on the plate on the side of it what we're dealing with in terms of horsepower, and whether this is 33.33 and it's phase 1. So that's easy. That's going to plug into a domestic socket. Bigos, what are you doing? You want to go ahead? So they're popular, these wheels, and they work very well. If I switch it on and just operate the foot pedal for you, you'll see that it's very quiet and it has good speed range. Hardly hear it running over the noise of the river behind. And I like it. It's got a nice big basin on the top of it, which is handy because it'll accommodate your sponges and water and all that sort of thing. And you see them come up now and again, and sometimes they're expensive. Probably now it's difficult to find one for 200 or 300 quid. I think I only paid a couple of £100 for this one, and found it about 5 or 6 years ago. And it's very comfy. You can alter the height of the seat on this wheel. This is its original covering, so I don't think it had done that much work, although where it was, it had been attacked a bit by woodworm. Now the cabinets on these, they are structural. In other words, they do form the structure of the wheel. It's not like it's got a metal frame inside it. It hasn't. So what has it got inside it? Well, it's got 1/3 of a horsepower electric motor that is fixed. So when you switch it on, the motor is not rotating. It's absolutely silent now. I've got to press the foot pedal to get it going, and all the way down, that's its top speed. So the idea of these wheels is that you can vary the speed without really altering the torque very much. That's the amount of power that's transferred to the wheel head, as opposed to the speed that's transferred to it. Now, to achieve that, you've got an electrical box of tricks in there, which is attached to the inside of this cabinet by these 4 screws there, and it's operated by a linkage from this pedal to that box. That then switches the motor on, and the motor drives a not very heavy flywheel at the bottom of the shaft, which joins it onto the wheel head here. So that's got a vertical shaft running down there. Points to remember: if that box of tricks goes wrong there, it's expensive to repair it. It means really replacing it, and so you're always taking a little bit of a risk there. If you go and look at one and it seems to be running perfectly normally, and it's nice and quiet. Great. If it's hesitant or doesn't switch on properly or fails to respond to the foot pedal or anything like that, and that indicates that there may be a problem in this electrical box of tricks here, then don't buy it, because it could be very expensive to put that right. The other thing you should check is the solidity of the wheel head. That wheel head should not have any movement side to side in it like that. It should be completely firm. You shouldn't be able to, shouldn't go clunk, clunk, clunk as you move it from side to side. It should be completely firm, and when it's going, it should be fairly quiet. It's not going to be silent. A lot of noise in the wheel head, like I'm going to demonstrate to you in a minute. It would indicate that the bearing at the top here could be shot. Now the bearing itself costs, I don't know, about £20. It's pretty cheap, and you can buy them online, but it is a little bit of a job to replace them. And you can usually either feel or hear it if you've got a bearing problem. Normally if you have, 9 times out of 10 it's the top bearing, because that's the one that's the most vulnerable to liquid getting over the top of this plastic or fiberglass bin here and seeping down into wherever the bearing is housed underneath it. And as I say, I've done this one, and it's much better now. You would expect them to go, you know, after, I mean, this has got to be 40 years old at least. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Now, make sure you can see it. That's the one with the grey bin here. Now, this one looks the same, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch it on, and the first thing you'll hear is the motor running. So you didn't hear it with that because it doesn't run until you press the pedal. This one runs all the time once you put the power on. So that noise is the motor running. This is the control panel down the bottom, similar sort of thing. And I move it down, there's a bit of a clunk. On top of the motor, which is mounted in a frame which tilts, and the tilting mechanism is attached to this foot pedal. So when I press the foot pedal on this one, there's quite a bit of weight there. You know, the resistance is actually tilting, is the effect of tilting the motor. The motor on top of it has a cone, and that comes into contact with a big flywheel at the bottom of this vertical shaft. It's a very fast wheel. I've done the bearing on the top of this one as well, because when I bought it, it was very floppy. You could move it from side to side, and it was very noisy. Now here's another difference in these two. This one you can use as a banding wheel quite easily, because the motor's now moved back out of contact with the flywheel at the bottom, and so the flywheel and the wheel head are just free to rotate with only the friction of the bearings acting against it, which isn't much, or shouldn't be. So there we are. That one actually is sort of dual purpose, and of course that flywheel will rotate either direction. So if you were doing decorating or something like that, and you wanted a dual purpose wheel, these cone wheels will act like that. You can tell it's another way you can tell it's a cone wheel is the motor's usually more powerful than it is in there. 7 or 8 times out of 10, that's a third of a horsepower, and this is a half. So these can be a little bit more than that. And this one is 3/4 of a horsepower, 0.75. So it's quite a big motor in this one, and great for throwing big pots. With this one, you can see from the bin, is used with terracotta, and this one is used with the white clay. Because we are using 2 different clay bodies in this pottery, it's just easier to have 2 wheels. And I made a more comfortable seat for this out of a big piece of elm that I had, and usually they come with rather an uncomfortable little plywood seat cut out there. And again, there are several settings on this bracket here, so you can move the seat up and down just like you can with this one. The cabinet looks like it's slightly taller here, but it might be sitting on a bigger block of wood at the bottom too. So when you look at them on eBay, they look the same, and a lot of people will describe this as an Alsager wheel, but it isn't. I mean, I don't want to be too much of an anorak about it, but the important thing is that the function's a bit different. So this one, see, will not act as a banding wheel. It doesn't really want to turn, because when you're turning the wheel head on this one, remember, you go down the vertical shaft, you go down this vertical shaft to a lightweight flywheel pulley, and that has a belt on it that connects it with the motor. So when you turn this, you're turning the motor. So you've got the resistance of the motor against you here. So it's no good my doing that and expecting it to freewheel. It won't. The cone wheel will, this one won't. Okay, so the mechanisms actually do affect the usability and the nature of the wheel. Both those wheels are old, so they're both made for right-handers. I just demonstrate that. If I just put a pencil on this one, switch it back on again, and turn it, it's going to go anti-clockwise. See? Now, if you're a left-hander, you don't want that. You want it to go anti-clockwise if you're a right-hander, but if you're a left-hander, you want it to go clockwise. Now then, neither of these wheels are reversible. This one certainly isn't, but on that one, you could get the motor to turn back the other way. You wouldn't want to keep doing it, but it can be done because it's mechanical. This one's electrical, and I don't think that's going to work on that one. I might be wrong. I'm getting out of my depth slightly because this is complicated. I can do almost anything myself with the cone wheel, okay, and have done. So this one here, there isn't much that I couldn't do to that. I can certainly fix the woodwork. I can fix the bearings on it, which I have done. So that's got lovely bearing in it now. And apart from rewinding a motor, there isn't much I can't do to that. But this one, this is different. This is quite a sophisticated electrical box of tricks, because remember, it changes not just the speed, which wouldn't be a problem, but it maintains the torque at an even rate as well. So you don't lose power at the higher revs. Now, that's really important. Now, there's one other kind of wheel in here I'll show you, and we've got 2 of these. I'll just put this one on the Alsager wheel so you can see this little wheel down here. Now this one crops up on eBay now and again, and it's a Winslow wheel. Actually, it's a Marlow wheel. They started making them first of all in Winslow, and then they moved to Marlow, which I don't think is that far away, but they changed the name when they did. And they were made by a small company called Village Craft Joinery. The wheel was designed by Bill Reed, and it's beautifully made. in marine ply and softwood, and it has an entirely mechanical mechanism in it on top of the motor, which again I think is a third of a horsepower. On top of the motor there's a pulley that expands and contracts, and as it does that the belt moves in and out, varying the speed. It's got a gate on the bottom of it, and it's switched on and off with a pneumatic or air switch here. So if I put that one on, just bear with me a minute, I switched it off by the look of it. We'll just plug that in. Well, that's what I mean by noisy bearing. Now, if you hear that noise, I don't think that's a very good sign. Okay, it's not making it now because it's going around a lot slower, but as soon as it gets some speed on, that's the Lotus wheel head on top of that, and the Lotus wheel head is designed to accept plywood bats like this. Just modifying that at the moment so that it'll accept a few other things, because we might use this one for turning and decorating as well as throwing. So we're trying to make this a little bit more multi-purpose, this wheel. And it didn't come with the tray attached to it, but it's supposed to have a tray, mostly they do, and that's where you put your water and tools and stuff like that. There's a bit of room in there, but that's actually quite big, that wheel head, and the standard wheel doesn't come with an enormous wheel head like that. I'll show you, I've got another one here. So here's the other one, and let's just switch this one on. Same mechanism. Okay, now I'll just put that on full speed. So that's what it should sound like. And I think that's the tray that it would have come with originally fitted to it. This is quite a late model, one of these. They must have made a few hundred of these, because they do come up for sale now and again on eBay, and that's in the UK. I don't think you're going to find one of these in the States unless somebody's taken one there, although no doubt there are plenty of worthy alternatives. This is a really good wheel. This is a professional potter's wheel. They all are, actually. They're all good wheels in their own way. So what's the advantage of having a small wheel like that? Well, the advantage is if you want to make chimney pots or something, it's brilliant, because you can stand up and walk around this wheel and manipulate clay on it. I say throw, but you could do. If you're making something like a chimney pot in two pieces, for instance, you've got the room to do it on a wheel like this. And also, this wheel is, I think, although it's only got a third of a horsepower motor, you couldn't stop it. The torque is phenomenal. It's a really, really good piece of gear. And so I often see them advertised, and people think that they're some kind of amateur-made thing. They're not. They were made by people who really knew what they were doing, and they're beautifully made as well. No longer, you know, nobody could afford to make something of that quality anymore and sell it on the open market. against Chinese imports at a 200 quid. You know, we'd be talking about £2,000, but it's at the very, very minimum. I think the Alsager wheels, these are still available new, and with 2 horsepower sizes. It's a bigger one, and there's, I can't remember what they are. I think one's 3/4 horsepower and one's a half, probably, in that thing. But if you go on to pottery supply sites or Gladstone Engineering in Stoke-on-Trent, who are the people who make them, I think they do anyway. They certainly make a lot of other ceramic equipment, and if you're looking for something specialised in that field, then that's a good site to check out. And I think this one now is somewhere between £2,500 and £3,500, depending on the size of the motor. And but they will last virtually a lifetime, and I think this one probably already has. And so there we are. There's 3 different wheels, and sort of horses for courses. This one again, unlike the cone wheel, but like the Alsager wheel, isn't brilliant at freewheeling. It will a bit. I can sort of spin it a bit, but it's quite because again, you know, there's a belt onto a flywheel and then another belt from that flywheel back to the motor. You're turning a fair bit, but it's easier than the Alsager wheel, but it isn't as easy as the cone wheel. So if you think you want a wheel to do a lot of decorating and stuff, you won't be doing it on this unless it's powered, and that's its fastest speed there. I'll just put it on its slowest speed so you can see that. And this one too, having the gate on the throttle control down here, you can lock it in there and walk around the wheel. That's its slowest speed there. Actually, we got 4 of these. I did have 5, but I sold one. I had to put a bearing in the top of it. And if you do find one of these that's noisy, putting the bearing in the top of this is quite a difficult job. It's not got a screw-on wheel head. I don't think it's an interference fit. I can't remember whether there's a pin in it or a keyway. I can't remember now. It's a couple of years since I've done one, but it isn't a knocker screw attached. I do know that. Whereas these 2 are. So these 2 are quite easy to change the wheel heads on either of these. You just unscrew them, and which does make life a little bit easier if you do need to do a bearing. But you still got to remove the tray. On that one you can't. Anyway, I'm really rambling on, because you probably 9 people out of 10 don't want to take their wheels to bits and rebuild them. That's just me talking there, and we're always taking stuff to pieces and putting it back together again. Anyway, there you go. There's a few sort of bargain basement wheels that you might find on eBay, and if you want to know more on the technical side or any other side, I plan to expand this a fair bit. So if you like and subscribe, you'll find some of the other videos that we've done, and we'll be looking at pug mills and jolly and jiggers and you know, moulding stuff and tile making and all that kind of stuff, and glazing kilns and all the rest of it. So and we're here to help, and so we'd appreciate your comments or questions, and we hope that we're going to see you again.